Welcome to What a Creep, the show with Margot Donohue and Sonia Mansfield talking about creeps from the past to the present.
This is your quick guide to the biggest creeps, jerks, assholes, and losers, the best of the worst.
From two nice ladies who want the world to be a little less creepy.
Welcome back to What a Creep. This is Margot Donohue, and my cohort in creepitude, as always, is the amazing Sonia Mansfield. Hello, my friend.
Hello, my friend.
We are the show that talks about creeps from the past to the present, and if this is your first time listening, hello! Said like Mrs. Doubtfire. Welcome to the show. We talk about creeps, and then we always end the show with someone who's not a creep, so it won't leave you feeling completely creepy at the very end. You can follow us on Facebook. We do have a basic Facebook page. That's where people usually go to complain about our language. Yes, we use salty language in this program.
Yeah, fucking deal with it.
We have a private Facebook group, and that's where you and I are the most interactive. It's What a Creep podcast group. You ask to join in. You have 3 little questions to answer, and if you answer them correctly, you get to come in and join the fun. We just ask that you don't be an asshole. It's pretty easy.
Yeah, if that's difficult for you, then that's not the group for you.
It might not be the group for you. We are on Twitter at CreepPod because somebody had What a Creep on Twitter for 10 years, though who cares anymore, right? I mean, that's probably burning in hell soon. But anyway, they had it for What a Creep for 10 years and didn't even use it.
Creep!
We are on Instagram, What a Creep Podcast. Please follow us there. That would be amazing. And you can also just send us an old-timey email, whatacreeppodcast@gmail.com. And we will send you stickers if you would like some stickers. And we also look for suggestions for creeps and non-creeps. And all those places are really great places to reach out to us. Sonia, do you want to talk a bit about our website?
Yes, you can go to whatacreeppodcast.com, and it's everything you ever wanted to know about our podcast, but we're afraid to ask. It has links to all of our past episodes, and in each of those posts are show notes because we source every single thing we do. So if you're looking for a deeper dive on, say, today's creep, you could click into that episode, and you could do it on your phone too, by the way, and we source everything. So check it out. There's also a link to our merch shop where you could get t-shirts and tote bags and journals and face masks and all kinds of awesome shit. Please do it. It's great. There's also a link to our Patreon page. You want to tell them about that, Margot?
Yes, Patreon. We have our first few seasons up there. We've been doing the show. We have over 200 episodes now that we've put together.
That's a lot of creeps.
It's a lot of creepage. I was looking at I think it was Cracked, did a thing today where it's like celebrities that we thought were nice that turned out to be, total maniacs. And we covered all of them. And I thought,
they should have sourced us.
Right? So you could find that there. But we also put out 2 bonus episodes a month. We're going to be, so that's Patreon, and it just helps us with the cost of getting all the news stuff that we look up and the streaming stuff and the software and all that stuff that helps put the show together. And we just thank you all so much for being a part of it. We really appreciate it. We're going to start doing a Substack this summer. So keep waiting for those details. We're really excited about it because we want to talk about both of our shows.
Yes, I'm excited to play around with Substack, to be honest.
Yeah, it's going to be cool.
I like new stuff.
But let's be clear. If, money's tight for whatever reasons that's going on, or you just, you got too many subscriptions going on, if you could just please leave us a review wherever you get your podcast, that would be amazing. I finally figured out on Spotify that I have to actually click OK if you leave us a review there. So all of you that do that, thank you so much for doing that. Also at Good Pods and everything else. And I just want to give a special shout out to the following people who gave us 5-star reviews in iTunes.
Thank you.
Oregon. That's how you pronounce it. Customer 2020. That's the way Al Pacino pronounces it in Scent of the Woman. Oregon.
Hoo-ha.
Hoo-ha. She had a great ass. And also to Jax95. They're both from the US of A. We really appreciate y'all for taking that time because Apple doesn't make anything easy, and leaving reviews is not easy. So those of you that take the time to do that for us, we super appreciate it. And we want a programming note. It's Memorial Day weekend next weekend. Sonia is going to SD to see Lizzo.
Going to see non-creep Lizzo in concert. Very, very excited.
So we're probably going to have something special for you instead. We're putting that together as we speak.
Yes.
So just be prepared for that.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. That's the better way to put it. Okay, so our creep today, we have two actors. One's a creep, one's a non-creep. Sonia.
Ooh.
Yes, I know. I didn't even tell you who it was. You're going to have to wait.
Nope. It's going to be a surprise to me as well.
But I should say that it was something that people reached out to me on Instagram and at our email for this particular person. So to all of you out there, thank you once again for reaching out. All right, Sonia, who be our creep today?
Yes. So this was a request. We got many a request for this creep. So I moved him up the list. We're going to be talking about Armie Hammer. So trigger warnings: sexual abuse, physical abuse, child sex abuse, and cannibalism.
Ugh.
That's right.
We've never done cannibalism, have we?
I don't think so.
No. Oh, no. There's that one lady in London. That was a while ago, yeah.
That was a while ago, though, yes. So sources for this episode: Complex, The Guardian, House of Hammer documentary series on Discovery Plus, Page Six, People, Vanity Fair. Big shout out to Vanity Fair.
Yeah.
That's a massive article that covers a ton of stuff. Variety, Vulture, and of course, our good friends at Wikipedia. So Armie Hammer is an actor probably best known for his roles in The Social Network and Call Me By Your Name, the movie I always call Me Maybe. Call Me By Your Name. If I say Call Me Maybe later, I'm sorry. I'm not doing it on purpose. Like, it's an accident.
No, I'm going to fucking do it.
Yeah, it's the same way I always refer to Doc Hollywood as Doc Holiday. I don't mean to do it. Yes, but Hollywood really tried to make Armie Hammer a thing, but he starred in a string of flops. The Lone Ranger, The Man from U.N.C.L.E., the remake of Rebecca. Actually, I heard The Man from U.N.C.L.E. is kind of good, but it didn't make money. So anyway, his most recent project is being the subject of a documentary and several articles that reveal that he's an abuser, both physically and sexually. Just last month, that would be April 2023, the Los Angeles District Attorney's Office announced that there is an active case against him for sexual assault. He's a creep. But if we're going to talk about Armie Hammer, we need to start at the beginning, and I mean like the very beginning.
Adam
because
and Eve?
It turns out, first
It's going to be a long show.
First God created light, and then no, it turns out Armie Hammer comes from a long line of creeps. So it's practically hereditary. We don't have time to get into all of it. I recommend the documentary series if you want to get into all of it, but I wanted to give y'all some quick hits. So Armie's great-grandfather was Armand Hammer, also known as Lenin's chosen capitalist by the press.
Nice.
He was
interesting.
Yes, nice. He was very much into his art collection, and he had very close ties to the Soviet Union. His parents had immigrated from Russia, and then Armand moved back to the Soviet Union in 1921 for about a decade to build up his business.
Okay.
While he was there, he married a Russian singer named Olga, and they had a son named Julian. That is Armie's grandfather.
Okay.
All right.
Julian was born
50s,
there?
Yes.
Okay.
By the 50s, Armand had divorced Olga, had a second wife named Angela. He moved to Los Angeles. He then divorced Angela, married another woman named Frances, and invested.
Sorry,
Frances
I always say
invested, invested her money in a company that was failing at the time called Occidental Petroleum, which he then turned into a very successful company. As the company grew, Armand tried to distance himself from his Russian connections. He actually hired a journalist to ghostwrite a memoir called The Remarkable Life of Dr. Armand Hammer. And he just totally rewrites his own history like he's a self-made man. He didn't just marry into money or anything like that. He did it himself. And then he, as part of that image, he starts surrounding himself with like really like, I want to say popular people, because believe it or not, Prince Charles was like a popular guy
in the
especially when he
70s.
was, yes, when he was, and then marrying Princess Diana. Yeah. So he hung around the royals. He hung around high-powered politicians. He went to all the inaugurations. You know, he collected its expensive artwork and he would donate it to museums. He even like convinced Chinese leaders to lend 2 pandas to the Los Angeles City zoo. Do you remember that when the pandas came?
Didn't they
to
like
America?
They kept trying to get them to mate, right, or have babies.
Yes.
Aww.
Yes. He helped to bring the pandas to Los Angeles. But it turned out like he's doing all these things, but he's also laundering money, used that artwork to fund like Soviet espionage, and bribed his way into the oil business. He was also super paranoid. He bugged his office, his home. He had cufflinks with like little microphones in them. He recorded like every conversation he had for decades.
Jesus.
Yes, he had a fixer, you know.
Every time he went to the bathroom, you
yeah, right.
Oh
so
my
gross.
God.
Gross. Sorry.
It's like someone
Sorry.
somewhere. Was that what that's at the show? Somebody somewhere?
Yes.
Bridget
Oh my
Everett.
God. I almost pooped my pants watching that. It was so funny. Anyway, he also like would walk around with like a briefcase of cash. Like that's, you know, how he would do business. He made like illegal contributions to the Nixon re-election campaign. They're saying in all likelihood, like he helped pay for the Watergate cover-up.
Jesus Christ. He's like the Forrest Gump of shitheads. Like
seriously, he did. He actually got charged like with obstructing justice during all of this, and he pled guilty to like misdemeanor charges and later was pardoned by George W. Bush.
Of course.
Sorry, by
HW?
HW. Thank you very much. A little bit more about Armand that I found this to be fascinating. He had multiple mistresses.
Sure.
And at one point, he had this mistress named Martha Kaufman. She was a mother of 2. You said,
I think I know the story. Go ahead.
Okay, so she was a mother of 2. She was divorced, and he like put her on the payroll as an art consultant for the company, but she was just his mistress. When Armand's wife, Frances, got suspicious, she was like, you need to end it with Martha. He had her legally change her name to Hillary Gibson. And he insisted that she like wear wigs and glasses and wear different makeup to change her appearance to fool his wife.
Oh my
This is a thing that happened, y'all. The affair lasted for like over a decade. He promised to take care of her and her children after he died. She drove a car that had like a fucking like tracking device on it. She used tapped phones. She submitted to like his sexual demands, no matter what they were. Like she lived by his rules. And then when he died in 1990, he left her and her children out of his will.
Oh, what an asshole.
Cool dude. What a nice dude. So he's a creep. Then we have Armand's son, Julian, which is Armie Hammer's grandfather. He's a creep too. In 1955, he killed a man in Los Angeles over a gambling debt. And supposedly the guy had also made a pass at his wife.
Oh.
Yeah. There was like all these front page headlines. It's like millionaire son kills man, you know.
But it's LA, so he gets away with it, right?
He did.
Yeah.
So Armand paid like $50,000 in cash to a lawyer in Los Angeles. Julian claimed self-defense and the charges were dropped.
Jesus Christ. The LAPD, I mean, so corrupt.
So crooked.
Yeah.
Yes. So Julian was married to a woman named Glenda Sue. She had 2 children, a girl named Casey and Michael. And Michael's Armie's father. We'll get to him in a minute. Julian had substance abuse problems. That doesn't make him a creep. But he was physically abusive to Glenda Glenna. That's right. And he sexually abused Casey when she was a child.
Oh.
She's written a whole book about it, by the way. And she is in the documentary series as well.
Oh, Jesus.
When the great-grandfather Armand died in 1990, he left $500,000 to Julian. He left $250,000 to Casey, and he left everything else to Michael.
And Michael. That's a Lost Boys reference. So I'm sorry, that's Armie Hammer's father, is Michael?
Yes.
Okay.
So Julian died. That's his grandfather. He died in 96. Now, Michael Hammer, that's Armie's father. He's not a prize either, y'all. He pretty much lived the life of like a rich playboy until he met Armie's mother, Drew Ann, that's her name, in 1985. And then he got like super Christian after he met his wife. And he started working at Occidental Petroleum with his grandfather. Like I mentioned, when his grandfather died, he left practically everything to Michael. And within hours of his death, like Michael was at Armand's house taking shit.
Yeah, I know this kind.
Yes. Yeah.
We all know this kind.
He showed up at his, grandfather's house and immediately started like removing things from the house within hours of his death. Yeah. And even though Armand had spent his final years, like Armand was Jewish, by the way, I didn't mention that. He was Jewish, and he was like, he had recommitted himself to his Jewish faith in like his later years. He actually was going to have like another like bar mitzvah for himself.
Werewolf bar mitzvah.
He didn't make it to his own bar mitzvah. He passed away before then, but
he was a tad older than 13.
Just a little older.
It was a little ridiculous.
He couldn't wait to be a man. He was so excited to be a man. Even though like he was Jewish, Michael then like, inherited all this money and like started taking all the money and putting it into like Christian groups like Jews for Jesus and Italy for Christ and stuff like that. He also like, served on like an investment committee and like board of directors or whatever for like Oral Roberts University.
What a name.
But then when Michael and his wife Drew split, these are Armie's parents, he reverted back to his total playboy ways. He was like hooking up with every woman that would have him. He was doing drugs. He was like texting like dirty photos to his friends. And he died of cancer last November, but he was only 67.
Jesus. Yeah.
So Armie comes from a long line of creeps is what I'm getting at here. And there's so much more in that documentary. It's like fully like,
it's head spinning.
Yes, there's so much. So Armand Douglas Hammer, born August 28th, 1986.
Virgo.
In Santa Monica, California. Beautiful, beautiful city. When he was 7, his family moved to the Cayman Islands, where they lived for 5 years before settling in Los Angeles. When they moved to the Cayman Islands, I think Michael actually bought a house in the Cayman Islands that he like saw in the movie The Firm.
Oh, I know that house. Yeah, like I would want it too. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what inspired him to move to the Cayman Islands. But eventually they moved back to Los Angeles. In high school, Armie was not a good boy. He skipped class a lot. At one point, he set a fire on school grounds, and then he dropped out of school in the 11th grade because he wanted to be an actor.
Okay.
He did go back to school for a little bit. He took a few courses at UCLA, but it didn't stick. And his career started with like small parts on TV. So it was like small parts in like Veronica Mars and Gossip Girl and Desperate Housewives. And then small parts in movies. So like he was in the movie Flicka, which I believe is about a horse that came out in like 2006. And then he did like a movie that made no money, which is pretty on par for Armie Hammer, to be honest. And it was called Billy the Early Years. And it was all about like Billy Graham.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. But, and that was in 2008, but like his big like breakthrough role was The Social Network in 2010. And I'll be honest, like he's very good in the movie.
I think
like,
he has charisma. I will say that. I think he looks great on the screen.
He's a handsome man. Yeah. He's tall and handsome, and he is very good in the movie for sure. It was a big year for Armie. So he does The Social Network, which is great. And he's getting great reviews, and like it really puts him on the map. And he gets married. He met this woman, Elizabeth Chambers. She worked as a reporter for like Entertainment Tonight and E! News and Access Hollywood and all that stuff. So they get married. After The Social Network, that's when Hollywood really tries to make Armie a thing. So like he does this like rom-com with Julia Roberts called Mirror Mirror.
Do you remember that one? No.
Yeah.
She has some stinkers in her catalog.
She does. He did The Lone Ranger. And then he did The Man from U.N.C.L.E., which I mentioned before. And none of these movies made money. Like, he's not a draw, by the way. Nobody's like, ooh, I can't wait to see the new Armie Hammer movie. He then in 2017, he does Call Me By Your Name. And again, like he gets great reviews. He got a Golden Globe nomination. Like there was talk he might get an Oscar nomination. And then it really, again, it doesn't translate into into other successful roles for him. He does a movie called Wounds. He does the remake of Rebecca. He does a movie called Crisis. If you've never heard of those, welcome to the fucking club. Those movies made like no money. He did have like a small part in a movie called Sorry to Bother You in 2018. That
None
actually did pretty
ring a bell.
Yeah, that was a good movie, but it wasn't like a huge success, but it was a good movie. So let's get into the creepy stuff. So let's start with this one. Armie gave an interview to Playboy magazine, in which he said, "I used to like to be a dominant lover. I liked grabbing the neck and hair and all that. Then you get married and your sexual appetite changes. You can't really pull your wife's hair. It gets to a point where you say, I respect you too much to do the things I want to do."
Red flag.
Yes, I'm like super cool and normal thing to say about your marriage and sex life. So Armie and Elizabeth have 2 children together, a daughter born in 2014 and then a son in 2017. Shortly after the son's birth, Armie confesses to like having an affair, but he insists it just happened the one time. Just the one time.
Sure.
They do couples therapy and all that, but the cheating continued. And then the pandemic happens and they're in the Cayman Islands and he leaves. He just ditches them in the Cayman, and he decides to go to LA, leaves his family in the Cayman Islands. He goes back to LA. And then when he touches down in the US, he sends some dirty text to his girlfriend or mistress, whoever it was, but he accidentally sent it to his wife.
Not too smart.
Not too smart. So she filed for divorce at that point, and she actually asked for an evaluation of him. She wasn't convinced that like he was all there, basically. She in her paperwork claimed that he was grooming girls as young as 15, and she described him as a psychopath.
Holy shit.
Yeah. So then the shit really hits the fan. So now we're like January 12th. I'm giving exact dates because all this shit happens within like fucking 5 days. January 12th, 2021, a woman who has a social media account called House of Effie, she posts on her Instagram that she had an affair with Armie Hammer for like 4 years, starting in 2016. She said they were off and on again. But during that affair, he sent her graphic and violent texts about cannibalism, rape fantasies, and his desire to drink her blood. Again, you could be like, okay, whatever, weirdo.
Right.
Like, if that's your kink. Oh, you know what? I shouldn't kink shame. If that's your kink, whatever. Whatever you do with consenting adults is your business. And she had the receipts. She published it all the texts and screenshots and and in those things, he also tells her that he's 100% a cannibal and again expressed his desire to drink her blood. And he said things like, "You just live to obey and be my slave. I want to cut off one of your toes and keep it with me in my pocket. So I always have a piece of you in my possession."
Can't you just take a little lock of hair like a normal person? Like,
seriously, gross.
Let me clip my fingernails for you.
Yeah. So she posts this stuff. 5 other women come forward at this point, and they share their screenshots with House of Effie, and she shares them on her channel. And then the next day, like, Armie Hammer, like, voluntarily, quote unquote, leaves the J-Lo movie Shotgun Wedding, the movie that just like came out on like Amazon a couple months ago. He's replaced by Josh
Duhamel.
Duhamel. That's a terrible way to pronounce. He's probably perfectly nice, but another one where I was like, he's good looking, but
yeah,
right.
So
Armie Hammer releases a statement. "I'm not responding to these bullshit claims." Whatever.
That's beneath
2 days. Yeah, it's beneath me.
No,
now give me your toe.
If you're not guilty, you're going to get really pissed off and
yes.
address those complaints, those claims. Excuse me.
So House of Effie drops her stuff, shows the receipts. 2 days after that, Armie's one of his ex-girlfriends, her name is Courtney Buskovich.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I'm just going to call her Courtney now. She dated him for 4 months in 2020, and then she goes public. And she confirms pretty much everything House of Effie says. And she talks to Page 6, and she talks about how he completely love bombed her, right? Like tons of calls and texts and trips and money. And like, he just, and she says he enters your life in a big way. And he's such a captivating person. Yeah. And, how good he is at manipulating you and making you feel like he's never felt this way about anybody. You're special. That's love bombing. But she says eventually, like, he gaslights you, he manipulates you, and eventually he gets emotionally abusive. He sexually coerced her and made her feel unsafe. And like, she said he'd say things to her like, "I want to break your ribs and barbecue and eat it. I want to take a bite out of you." He's so gross. Or she said one time she like got a cut on her hand, and he like was like licking and sucking the blood off of her hand. And, and she says that like he did things that made her really uncomfortable. And like, some of it is like you consent to a certain. Here's the thing. What she's talking about and what's going to come up repeatedly is like BSDM or whatever. And,
BDSM?
Yeah, BDSM. Thank you. I reversed the letters. I apologize. BDSM. And I reversed it in my notes here to myself, so I get it right. And that can be like, tying up and role play and things like that. Sure. But there's 100% like consent going on here.
Safety
and there has to be trust. Yes. And like, she's, what a lot of these women start describing is like, he crosses those boundaries. They give him consent for like a little, and then he takes it all, kind of thing. And she describes that sort of thing. Like, he did things with her that made her uncomfortable. He convinces you that he's going to stay within those boundaries, and then he just crosses them. And she's like, and he drinks too much and he does drugs, which then you're in a very vulnerable position. You're like tied up or whatever, and you're trapped with someone who's not in their right mind. And that is very scary. Mm-hmm. So that's what's happening to her. And a lot of these women describe very similar things. The writer, Jessica, her name is Hendricks. She went on a few dates with Armie when he landed back in LA. She was probably the one he was texting the raunchy stuff to. She also like came out after House of Effie, and she posted screenshots. She, showing that like he did the same thing to her. And she said, if you're still questioning whether or not these Armie Hammer DMs are real, they are. And you should be questioning why we live in a culture willing to give abusers the benefit of the doubt instead of victims.
Exactly.
Then 3 days after that, no, sorry, this 3 days after House of Effie. So now we're still in January 2021.
Jesus.
It turns out Armie Hammer has a Finsta account, which if people don't know what Finsta accounts are, it's their like secret alternate Instagram accounts.
Fake Instagram.
Yes. And his was El Destructo 86.
Sorry. What a loser.
El Loser 86. And in it, he's just totally, if you see the stuff, you read the stories, like he's just talking about his divorce, his drug use. He's like doing drugs in the videos. He's talking about the women he's sleeping with. He like shares all kinds of photos and videos of women in bondage. He's liking things and commenting on things. And it's, private, but some people follow, he allows certain people to follow him and see that stuff. So there's that. Then another woman comes out, and her name is Paige Lorenz. She was 24 at the time. She also dated him for 4 months, like right after Courtney. She confirms everybody else's stories. She says that Armie branded her. He carved his initials on her skin, like right above her pubic bone, like a letter A. She has photos. And then, like, again, he like sexually coerced her, crossed all of her boundaries, like didn't get consent to do some of the things he did. And he took photos. I assume at some point she's, from what I understand, from what I read and saw, she's blindfolded, and he took photos of her without her consent, without her knowledge, and he shared them with people.
Ugh.
Yeah. Which is gross and 100% terrible. She said that at one point he was serious. She's like, this wasn't a joke. This wasn't role play. He tried to convince her to go see a doctor to remove her bottom ribs so that he could eat them. That's disgusting.
Ew.
Yeah. He's like, and she says, he was telling me you can remove the bottom ribs so he could smoke them, cook them, and eat them. He kept saying, you don't need them.
I think they're floating. Am I wrong?
I don't know.
Yeah.
But still,
Yeah,
like, gross.
So there was the big rumor about certain actresses that had a tiny waist, that's what they did.
Yes.
Yeah.
I remember hearing this about Janet Jackson.
I heard this about Raquel Welch. Like, that was her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just so fucking icky. Like, for example, I love horror movies.
Mm-hmm.
I can't do cannibalism shit. It's fucking gross to me. Like, it's the reason I had to stop watching Yellow Jackets. It's the reason I bailed on The Walking. And by the way, I like zombie stuff too. But when like people who aren't zombies start eating people, I'm like, fuck this. Like, so this is so fucking gross. It's so gross. So the idea that he wants to eat her ribs is disgusting to me. And she said, again, like, she was totally fine with like, she said it this way, traditional BDSM, but what he was doing was way outside of that and beyond, like her, yes, BDSM. And not her, and not consensual. In her boundaries and non-consensual.
Yeah, wrong.
So she comes out. After that, Armie loses another gig. He was supposed to be in The Offer, the Godfather's.
I love that show. Yeah.
Yes, which you loved. And then his agency drops him. So now we're a couple months later, March 2021, and Gloria Allred has now entered the picture. Gloria Allred has entered the chat, and she is representing Effie from Effie, House of Effie, who is now like telling her story and saying that Armie had violently raped her over the course of 4 hours in April 2017. That he beat her feet so that she couldn't like walk away. Like he wanted her feet to hurt every time she took a step.
Oh, what an asshole.
And she said, I thought he was going to kill me. Like, it's so awful. Shortly after that, Armie loses another project called The $1 Million Spy. And then he exits the cast of the Broadway show The Minutes. Like, he's losing work all over the place. By the way, he denies all of this. He insists that it's all consensual. In May 2021, he then checks into rehab, as they are wont to do with these kinds of stories, in Florida for drugs, alcohol, and sex issues. He's there for 6 months. And it was paid for by Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah, he supports his boys that have troubles.
He does.
I don't want to sound reductive. I mean, but he has a lot of empathy for people because he actually went to jail for his drug problems for a while.
Yes.
So it's
I think
his heart is in the right place. I think
exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I think, because I thought about it, and I was like, does he know? Does he believe the things the women are saying? He should. But also, he probably knows Armie Hammer, has so much empathy for people that have substance abuse problems.
Right.
So he paid for it.
He's got that Iron Man money. It's got to go somewhere. I get it. Yeah.
Yeah, so he stayed there for 6 months, and supposedly he, worked the program and stayed clean. And then a year later, like, People magazine drops this story about how Armie is like selling timeshares in the Cayman Islands. Like, he's there working a regular job, selling timeshares, and everyone starts losing their shit and making fun of him. And I was like, we shouldn't make fun of this dude for like getting a normal job and like making money.
He's
Absolutely
got bills.
not.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. He has bills. So
and he didn't get any money from his parents, right?
His parents cut him off.
Yeah, I'm sure.
His parents cut him off. He needed the money. He owed almost $70,000 to like American Express, and they were suing for their money, by the way.
And they will, yeah.
And so he got a job, and I was like, props to him for getting a job. Also, he was doing this in the Cayman Islands because his ex-wife was still living there with their children because they had a house there. So that's where they were. But then earlier this year, this was in February, Armie decided to give his first interview since everything went public. And he talked to Airmail, which totally reputable, I'm sure. And he insists again that all the encounters were consensual. But he acknowledges that like he was emotionally abusive. He says, I would scoop these women up, bring them into my whirlwind of travel and sex and drugs and big emotions. And as soon as I was done, I would just drop them off and move on to the next woman.
Which is fucked up.
Mm-hmm. He admits it. He revealed in the interview that he was sexually abused by a youth pastor when he was 13. And that's the experience that led him to BDSM and why he does these things. Now, if that's true, and let's say it is, I am very, very sad for him. Like, that's awful. I don't think that gives you a free pass.
No, I believe him, but that doesn't give you a free pass to hurt people.
Yeah.
And when people say hurt people, they can shut the fuck up. That's kind of trite and lame. I used to say that too, by the way. Yeah, it doesn't give you an excuse.
No. And in the interview, like, he really does paint himself as like a victim of like cancel culture. He even says, this cancel culture woke mob business. And that's where you lose me. Yeah. My dude. He said, the minute anyone does anything wrong, they're thrown away. There's no chance for rehabilitation. There's no chance for redemption. Someone makes a mistake and we throw them away like a broken disposable camera.
First of all,
my dude,
you're old enough to know better. You've been in show business a long time. You've seen people get canceled. You know how to not get canceled, not be a douchebag, not engage in that behavior. And by the way, Louis C.K. is selling out, all over the place. Chris D'Elia still hasn't been arrested, and there's like dozens of women accusing.
Also, referring to it as a mistake.
No.
A mistake. this isn't a typo on a resume, you asshole. Like, you sexually abused multiple women. You're not the victim here.
I put months and months into it.
Yes.
It's not, you know what I mean? Like, it's not like one time, like, he would go up to a party and then walk away and then blah, blah, blah. Like, he spent months cultivating a relationship with people.
Yeah. And he did it over and over and over again. Like, you are not the victim. And, like, here's the deal. Like, Armie Hammer doesn't need a comeback. Like, I hope that he stays sober.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I hope he learns something and he, you know, goes to therapy and all of that. It doesn't take back what he did to these women. The truth is, all the roles that he's played, anyone could have played it. Someone else could have played those roles. Like, he is a handsome dude. But to me, I was like, he's not a movie star. I think Armie Hammer's replaceable. He's not a name. He doesn't open movies. And I think anyone who casts Armie Hammer at this point is making a statement.
It's like You're making a statement. Mel Gibson.
Yes, you don't give a shit about victims.
You don't give anti-Semitism, misogyny.
Yes,
all that's fine with you.
Yes,
yeah,
you're making a statement when you cast him. So, just this past month, it would have been April 2023. If you're listening to this episode later, LA DA's office are reviewing more claims of sexual assault made against him. So there's more charges out there floating around. They're not sharing any details. They're not saying if these are like new complaints or if they're investigating the ones that were made in 2021. But it is still happening. And that's our creep, Armie Hammer.
Good job, Sonia. I need a brain silkwood shower to like get a lot of that out of my head. And
he's so icky.
Ugh. And I praise these women for putting themselves out there because people do love to victim shame.
They do. And there's a whole thing about like, if you're like agreeing to BDSM, you're agreeing to like all of it. And it's like, no, at any point you can withdraw your consent. It's just the way it is. It is. And no matter what kind of sex you're talking about, that's how it is.
That's
and like
what sex is. Yeah.
Yes. And when you're talking about stuff like that, there's definitely lines and you need to be respectful of them. And he clearly is not. It's real gross. And everything's in the show notes. If you want a deeper dive, everyone could watch that documentary. I streamed it through Amazon and there's lots of stuff in there about the whole family. Fascinating.
Well, are you ready to hear about our non-creep this week?
Please, I can't wait.
This story's going to get emotional, actually. I didn't realize this until because I thought of him a couple of weeks ago, and then something happened in the news. But our not creep this week is Sir Michael Edward Palin, or Palin, excuse me, from Monty Python.
Yes.
He was born May 5th, 1943 in Sheffield, England. He was educated at Oxford. Actor, comedian, writer, television presenter. He's mainly known for Monty Python, like I said, the Lumberjack song, the Spanish Inquisition.
I love
the Dead Parrot sketch. He's, Monty Python, like that's for American, like geeky kids in the 80s, 70s and 80s. Like that's all quoted over and over again.
Monty Python. Loved Monty Python.
It was, then in 1988, he had a huge role in a movie called A Fish Called Wanda. He played Ken. He won a BAFTA for that. That movie was huge. He's also, for the last 10 years, been known as a travel person. He's written dozens of books. He's been everywhere from North Korea to the South Pole and everywhere in between. Everywhere. This guy loves to travel. He's super intelligent. He's a very curious person. And he has a curious mind, and it's
my favorite type of people.
Me too.
Curious people.
He's had several TV shows and several documentaries. He's, I think, more known for that, probably for travel, than he was for Monty Python. He opened the character of Ken in A Fish Called Wanda had a stutter. And it's controversial because he is the butt of many jokes.
Yes.
And Python was known for like super pushing boundaries. They also have like a little old lady they're trying to kill, like throughout the whole movie.
The whole thing is how much Ken loves animals.
Yes,
and he's trying to kill this lady, and he keeps accidentally killing her dogs. It's very fucked up.
He has like these fish, and Kevin Kline comes in and like starts swallowing the fish in front of him. It's
the movie.
It's demented.
It is demented, and I remember seeing it in the theater and laughing so hard. How well is that movie aged? I don't know, but at the time, like,
yeah,
he's so funny in it.
Edgy comedies are like that because boundaries change and your protocol changes. So, turns out Michael Palin said later on he knew what he was doing. He's a smart man. He understood, like, and why people were offended. And he said that if his father weren't alive, he wouldn't have done it because his father had a heavy stammer and very self-conscious about it. And stuttering, and like James Earl Jones had a problem with that when he was a kid. There's certain people that have, right, and you can get training for it. Singing really helps with that. But there's different kinds of vocal training you can do. And he opened a thing called the Michael Palin Center for Stammering, and he makes it available to all people, economic levels. You can do online classes. They have tutoring, and they do all kinds of work for people of all ages who just want to deal with their stammering issue. That's just like one thing he's done. I want to just talk about, give me a second here, his activism. He's part of the Campaign for Better Transportation. He's really into public transportation. He's, like I said, his awards and honors. He started the Michael Palin Center, like I said, in 1993. He was he's in the Royal Canadian Geographical Society. He's had 2 rail cars named after him. Your son's into trains. He's got 2 rail cars named after him.
Oh, my son would be so jealous.
He has, there's an asteroid named for him.
Oh my God.
He's part of the Royal Scottish Geographical Society. Did I already say that? He's also, the Canadian, I said, he's also in the Royal Geographical Society. He's been nominated as Britain's nicest man.
Oh my gosh, come on.
He was named the greatest Yorkshireman ever, ahead of Sean Bean and Patrick Stewart.
Wow.
He is an Order of the British Empire, which is something that John Cleese and Terry Gilliam both declined. And he's had this amazing personal life. He met his wife, Helen Gibbons. She, in 1959, they were on holiday. And he actually created a show in 1987 for BBC television called East of Ipswich. And it was based on their marriage. They got married in 1966, and their marriage lasted, I'm going to cry, 57 years. Helen passed away recently on May 2nd. She passed, they had 57 years of marriage. She had pain, and she had kidney issues that she had been dealing with. And
that's sad.
Yeah, and he put out recently that, hold on. He said, this is an indescribable loss. Helen was the bedrock of my life. Her quietly wise judgment informed all my decisions, and her humor and practical good sense was at the heart of our life together. I know, I'm going to cry. But you can donate to that charity that I mentioned before. You can look that up for yourself. Or look at his documentaries or get one of his books, especially if you're interested in travel. He loves Instagram. He posts a lot on Instagram. And that's our Not Creep this week. Michael Palin. Sir Michael Palin.
What an amazing pick. Good job, Margot.
That was our listeners. They picked him out a few weeks ago. So
good job, everybody. Y'all are so smart.
Super smart. And
that makes me feel so much better after gross Armie Hammer.
Somebody who treated his wife really well and treated people really well. And so look, Armie Hammer could have some redemption. We're definitely rooting for him to find that, but he has to do the work. Right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And admit it. Admit your mistakes.
Own your shit.
Admit your. I don't want to say mistakes because that's not the right word.
No.
Like, admit what you did and do the fucking work, dude.
Nobody cares what's in your heart. It's what you say and what you do.
Yeah.
Remember that. I'm going to put
Yes.
that on a t-shirt. No one gives a shit what's in your heart. I can't see it. I don't care. It's what you say and it's what you do.
Yes, it's true.
All right. Well, if you like the sound of our voices, and by golly, why wouldn't you by now? We co-host a show called Dorking Out, where we dork out about movies. Our last movie that we covered was... Do you remember?
Shit. What was
Bill
it?
and Ted's
Bill and
Excellent
Ted's.
Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. Sorry, guys. It's Friday afternoon. Our brains
Yes.
are on freeze. So I watched this new documentary that's about Michael J. Fox on Apple Plus. Sonia's going to watch it tonight.
Yep.
I wrote to her and said, we should probably do a Michael J. Fox movie. And I said, what about Doc what about Doc Holliday?
Doc Hollywood.
Doc Holliday. Jesus, I did it too.
See, now you did it.
Oh, my God. It's Doc Hollywood. Oh, for God's sakes, y'all. Doc Hollywood, 1993 movie. I think it's on HBO Max or whatever they're calling it now.
Oh,
Is it just Max
good.
now?
Whatever. I'm really excited for this. I know I say that every week. I am really excited because I remember really liking this movie.
I posted the trailer on my on my Twitter and Instagram, and I was cracking up. I'm like, oh yeah, this is a really sweet. Woody Harrelson's in this movie.
Yeah,
Bridget
it's like
Fonda.
early Woody Harrelson. We love Bridget Fonda.
It's
Julie Warner.
She's adorable. Everybody drink. It's gonna be good. So that's gonna be the next one. Once again, we are always looking for suggestions for creeps and especially non-creeps. Reach out to us in all those ways we mentioned before.
Yes.
We love it when you use the Annie Potts gift. We got one from Ghostbusters as your gift, but choose anything you want. Be creative. Do your own thing. You do you, boo. If you would like some stickers, once again, the email address is whatacreeppodcast@gmail.com. That's also a way to reach out to us if you don't feel like joining the Facebook group. Not everybody wants to do that. And Sonia, where can they find you?
You can find me at thesoniashow.com and The Sonia Show on Twitter and Instagram and the TikTok. Where can people find you, friend?
You can find me at Brooklyn Margot on Twitter. I'm on brooklynfitchick.com. That's my site. I'm looking at Sonia and she's laughing. Instagram, I'm at Brooklyn Fit Chick. And on TikTok, I'm at Margot Donahue, Donohue. All right, y'all. In the meantime, be good, be safe, be kind. Just don't be a creep.
Be a creep. Thank you for listening to us talk about creeps. You can follow us at What a Creep Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
But don't follow us too closely.
You can email us your creepy stories at whatacreeppodcast@gmail.com.
But please keep your dick pics to yourself.